Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Overcoming the Obstacles. This is a channel where we talk about real problems faced by real people and how they've overcome them. Today, we're going to be talking with Tonya Lambert. Now, she is an incredible woman who has coped with and overcome the challenges of cerebral palsy. And not only has she done that, but she's moved forward with her life and has even earned a college degree. Before we go any farther, I want to invite you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Also, be sure to share this with your friends. Let them know about Tonya's fabulous story and how they can hear it and be encouraged. And don't forget to give me a like on that video because the thumbs up on the videos are so important.
Hi,
But I
Gail.
want to
Can
thank
you
you
hear
for
me?
being on today and for getting ready to hear Tonya as she tells us her incredible story about her journey. So here she is right now. Without further ado, I'm going to let her come on in. Hi, Tonya, and welcome.
Hi, Hi, Gail. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, I can. At
Well,
long last, we get to speak.
yeah, long last. Well, my story begins right from the jump, pretty much. My mom was had a normal pregnancy up until about 7.5 months. I was, of course, a surprise baby, but that didn't stop her. She loved kids and wanted more, so she was happy to have another child coming. Well, at 7.5 months, my father, who was a cowboy in Oregon at the time, and this was November, at the end of November, got sick. He got hepatitis. The
Uh,
cowboys went swimming in a pool in a pond that the cattle were drinking from, and they didn't know it was contaminated. He thought he
sure,
had the
they'd have no way
flu.
to know that.
Right. He thought he had the flu. And this was back
Oh,
in 1975. He came home and my mom got sick. Like I said, they thought it was the flu. They didn't realize how serious it was. He got better and went back to work, leaving my mom home with no phone, alone with a 23-month-old baby girl, and she went into early labor. I She only had a little mirror, which I actually still have, from a compact out of her purse to see how I was being born. At home in the bathroom, I was breech, feet first. And when I was born, I had hardly no body temperature. I was barely breathing and barely had a heartbeat. She had to clean up, put me in front of a baseboard heater with my sister, and then walk across the cattle farm in the snow and ice to get help. She didn't even know really how to cut the umbilical cord herself, so that was still attached while she went to get help. The neighbor, and I don't know how long it took her to get all the way across the cattle farm, but it was a while. The neighbor came back
sure.
and was able to cut the cord and let mom rest, but it was 2 hours
Mhm.
before the ambulance could get there and 2 more hours before they could get me to the hospital.
Wow, your mom had you walked across the farm to someone else, I'm going to assume a neighbor,
Yeah,
before she was able to call and get help for you immediately after giving birth.
right, right.
That is that is just
And she
she
cleaned
must have been
everything up.
terrified, but she was so brave to have done this.
She was only 21 at the time,
Oh,
and
wow.
she was very young, and she likes to say very young and stupid, which I don't think she was. But she didn't realize at the time she could have sued the people for the illness and had more help with my care. But she didn't know that at the time. She did wonder later when she got to the hospital. The doctor was like, "Well, your baby's not going to live. I don't know if I want to fill out a birth certificate." So they went through
Oh,
six
wow.
doctors before
That
getting.
would have been a hard moment for her to
Yeah,
have a doctor say that they didn't know if they wanted to fill out a birth certificate because you might not live.
He said why if he was going to fill out a death certificate right behind it.
Wow. I do want to say right quick, let me just say hello. We've got somebody in the chat. We've got a couple of people watching. I want to thank you all for joining us today. John, welcome. And a couple of people who are watching, if you want to dive on into the chat room, go ahead. She's going to be glad to answer your questions as she tells her story.
Any
Thank you
questions,
for
just
joining
throw
us.
them on out there.
Okay. There you go, Tonya.
They got the head of the doctor's hospital to sign the birth certificate. And my mom, when they said she may not live to midnight, said she's lived this long. I'm not worried about it. God's going to pull her through.
There you go.
And she knew I was going to make it. She was on my side from the get. People said to her, hey, you've got this little girl. She's disabled. If she does live, she's going to have cerebral palsy. Why don't you just put her away? And Mom was like, no, this is my baby.
So she had to fight from you from the very beginning for giving birth, from that moment where she gave birth and had to go get help, to arguing with a doctor over whether or not to sign a birth certificate because he was concerned there would be a death certificate. And so now she's being advised to give you up and, quote, put you somewhere?
Yeah, because they figured I wouldn't even amount to much because they knew I had brain damage from the lack of oxygen from the point of birth to the hospital was 4 hours without very much oxygen, not really breathing, heartbeat, all that. They knew there would be brain damage. And back in 75, they didn't really have the technology they do now. I was only 3 pounds. In fact, Mom could only hold me once. Then she had to be separated from me and everybody else in the hospital and quarantined. So they took, one of the nurses took
I can
photographs.
hardly imagine because, today couples find out they're having a baby and they immediately start making all these plans. And so having a baby is a very happy moment. And then to have everything that you went through, I'm speechless.
I told you my mom's a rock star. She is, if anybody asked me who's your hero, it would have to be my mom. Even when I was growing up, other people would want to baby me, like learning to get in and out of a car. We only had a little 2-door Pinto. And she had to sit there on her day off and put me on my feet, teaching me how to get in the car. And when I fell, pick me back up, put me back on my feet and do it all over again. We did this for hours until I figured out how to get in the car. When they were telling Mom, pick her up, carry her, put her in the car. Don't make her learn this stuff. And my mom's going, I'm not always going to be there to pick her up. She's got to learn. And she never made a difference between my sister and myself. She treated me like I was completely normal and expected me to believe that about myself.
So from the very beginning, she was determined that your life was going to be as normal as possible despite your abnormal circumstances in which you arrived.
Yes.
Okay. Hang on just a second. I just got a note on Twitter while I was on my phone just a second ago. The direct link for this show did not go out. So, Gloria, I'm going to retweet this. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm sorry that you're having trouble finding it, but I'm glad you did. I'm going to send out this direct link now instead of the channel link. Sorry about that, Tonya. There's a couple of ways we could do this.
No, that's fine.
Usually, the channel link is what we send out because it's the generic link, and then we post the direct link to this exact show afterwards after it's generated. So I'm going to go ahead and send this out now that the system's generated it. So go ahead and talk. I just want to give you an idea of why I'm not, more actively staring at you here while I do this.
What else was hard for my mom was she divorced my birth father right after I got out of the hospital. So
Oh
she's
gosh.
by herself. She's got she moved back to Missouri from Oregon. She's got my grandparents, but otherwise she's by herself with a 23-month-old and a newborn. And she'd never heard of cerebral palsy before this. She didn't know what I may or may not be able to do. And I was walking when I started to walk about 3 years old. And I started to walk on point, which is on your tiptoes, your heels up in the air like a ballerina. And the laundromat, the owner of the laundromat, saw how I was walking, and God bless him, he was a Shriner. And he got
Wow.
mom into Shriners hospitals,
Wow.
which was in St. Louis, which is only an hour from where we had come to live.
Wow. So God not just made sure you were alive, but put people in and put someone in your place that could get you the medical care that you needed.
God has always had people in my life to help me or that I could help through. I had my first surgery at 5 years old, and that's when you start kindergarten. And I was in what they used to call them leg irons. If you've never heard of the term, think of Forrest Gump, the movie, where he's got those
Right?
metal braces on and they're going up his leg and he's wearing those metal
Yes.
braces. That's what I was wearing. Let me tell you, they do not fall apart that easy. I wish.
Good.
I tried. But I have worn those 3 times in my life, and our first time was at 5 years old. Mom's working. She's raising my sister and I by herself, and I'm in the hospital. I'm alone because she couldn't be there. The only person who could was my grandfather on his lunch break. He denied himself something to eat to come see me. And his boss finds out. And his boss is like, hey, where are you disappearing to every day? And he's like, my grandmother's in the hospital. And so his boss gives him extra time for the lunch break so he
Oh,
could be with me and have something to eat while I was in the hospital.
wow. That
And
is really nice of his boss.
yes, and I was only one of 2 people at that time to have cerebral palsy and be in the St. Clair, Missouri area where I live. And she was only 2 years older than me in my sister's class. And the kids became very mean from the word go in kindergarten. The older kids created a game. And this went on till I graduated high school. The more injury you could do to the disabled person, and it wasn't just cerebral palsy, it was any disability, the more points you scored. The more points you scored at the end of the school year, you were the top dog. You got, you were really well liked, real popular. The more points you scored, the more popular you became. So the more damage you
Yeah,
could do
those
to the
games still go on. We hear about it, but not necessarily to the end of the school year collecting points, but just kind of a constant on the school playground kind of thing.
yeah, I walked home. I was a latchkey kid. And that means you get home before your parent, you wear a little key
Right.
around your neck so you can get in the house. And I had to walk up a big hill to get to get home from the kindergarten building. I had to go
Okay.
across
Okay.
the
Tonya, real quick. My husband John was tuning in because he wanted to hear you. And he says to tell you, he's in the chat room, and he says to tell you, I'm sorry to go, but I've got a meeting in a few minutes. Tonya, our church has prayed for you and your service dog.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much. Those prayers mean the world. They always have. I was raised in faith, and praying gets you through. The kids would throw rocks at my braces,
Yes, it
and so I'd
does.
slide back down that hill. And my sister's friends found out. And so they would grab me and help me up the hill and make sure guard me till I got home.
Good.
Every day. And it's the prayers of my family, my friends, you guys that get me through every day from the time I was born, even now. And this games continued and got worse through high school. Even a principal in the high school he was a victim of a trap set for me. When I was in high school, I was on the tardy exempt list, but my mom told me if I find out you abuse that privilege, you're going to be in trouble when you get home. I expect you to try. I respected that. And so I did my best
Yeah,
to
because
be.
she's not asking you to be number one. She's asking you to try and be what you can be.
Exactly. So everybody in the school knew what staircase I was going to be at what time. Because to get to class, I had to have a set schedule. I didn't see there was fishing line strung, and you know how clear that is, across the steps.
Oh,
You
no.
had steps, a landing with a concrete wall, and another set of steps. I hit the fishing line, but the principal hit it behind me. The kids were on the steps below watching and laughing as I hit the wall. And I hit that concrete wall head first.
Wow. Wow.
And they got in trouble more because they tripped the principal than they did me.
You're kidding me.
That was my junior year.
So let me just kind of get my mind around this. They purposely string up the fishing line so you would trip, but instead of getting in trouble so much with tripping you, they got in trouble more with tripping the school principal.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I just you keep talking because I don't even know how to get my mind around this.
Now this kind of game
One thing,
started.
Tonya, real quick. I'm starting to lose you. If you could hold the camera up, just perfect, perfect.
Sorry, my hands get tired and start to shake.
I understand.
This started when I was 5, and when I was 18 and graduated, it was still going on. This was before all the knives and the metal detectors, the guns at schools. I graduated in 94. And one of my best friends who had moved to my school district that year, my senior year, she caught me one day and she says, Tonya, the bathroom downstairs is out of order. Go to the one by the office. I'll tell the teacher you're going to be late because we had the same class after lunch. I didn't think she would lie to me because she'd never lied to me to that point. She was my best friend. I get downstairs and they're screaming coming from that bathroom. Well, I was already late for class, so I decided to be nosy. I'm just that way. I go in the bathroom and my best friend Danny was military trained. She was a sergeant in the ROTC Corps before she moved to St. Clair. She had the girl in a lock, got her arm behind her back up against the wall, and there's a knife at her feet. She had found out. They had said, hey, you hear what they're going to do to that cripple girl. And not knowing Danny was my friend because she was new to the school district, Danny said, oh, what? Playing dumb. And found out. That's why she directed me to a different place and went in my place to the bathroom. The teacher comes in and only sees Danny holding the other student against the wall with her arm behind her back and the knife at Danny's feet, and takes Danny Lynn to the office.
Oh gosh, hold on right there a second. We've got another person who's watching. I want to say thank you. She is not able to participate on her work computer, so she just sent me a tweet saying, Tonya, you're amazing. I'm so glad you're on here today sharing your story. So there
Thank
you go.
you.
Thank you, Gloria, for sending that.
Thank you. And this doesn't happen to just me. This happens to all kinds of people. But, I was lucky. I went to church with, and here God stepped in again. The superintendent of schools went to my church. He made the mistake several years before of telling me, if you ever need help, call me from the office. Well, I made use of that many times and made use of it again when my best friend was hauled to the office, because
Good.
I knew she would never hurt me, but the girl who had the knife had hurt me previously in previous years.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew who the culprit was. And it was just constant going through school. My cousins would get trapped in these traps. My sister would get picked on and bullied, and she was strong enough. She picked back. If someone started a fight because of me, my sister was going to finish it, or my cousins, which I had a passel. I was taught, don't fight back. You're not strong enough. If you try, you're going to get hurt. Okay, I wasn't taught that to be mean.
And that's not too unreasonable, because of a parent, not necessarily because you just don't have the physical strength. There are different ways of fighting back, and that is telling people and getting help. But that must
which
have been
is
a very difficult situation all around, not just dealing with the bullying, but they're concerned about you and your physical safety as far as whether or not you could fight back if need to be.
right. And so my friends would fight back. I would use my mouth. I've always had a big mouth. I've got a red hair. I've got a temper. I always said my hair's red because hair goes out my head. I use it. Okay, and I used what I knew. I knew I could get help from the superintendent and from my family on the phone, because by that time my mom had married and I had a stepfather, and he would step in if need be, if the situation warranted it. They let me handle what I could and expected me to handle what I could, but what I could not would be done. I thought after graduation this was done. This kind of attitude was gone, because these are kids, okay? Kids don't understand, don't have the capacity to understand. I thought adults would be different. I started high
And
school or
then
college.
all too often, what are parents told? They're told, or used to be told anyway, don't worry about it. He or she will grow out of it. They'll quit bullying as they get older. This is just a behavioral thing.
They
That's what
are.
we've heard.
And I went to college, and I couldn't do the normal classroom situation like you do, uh, because of my physical disabilities. And we didn't know then I had seizure disorder, and it was starting to come to the fore. And so I couldn't participate in class. The slides, the screens, they were kicking off seizures every time they'd turn off the lights.
Right.
And that happens quite frequently in a college classroom for one
Yeah, it does. I
presentation.
can attest to that, both as a person who has epilepsy and as a student in the class. And sometimes when the room's dark and they're showing a movie, it can be a problem too.
Yeah, see, exactly. So I couldn't, and we didn't know I had seizures then. So I had to drop out. I started college online a few years ago, just recently. And I thought online would be a better forum.
Sure.
And it was. It was, because they couldn't see me, so they didn't know I had a disability. So I kind of had anonymity until I messed up. I didn't really mess up, but I did a report for my college class on cerebral palsy and some of the things you have to handle to go through this. Be with.
Right.
I think God chooses the strong to be disabled, because He knows we can handle what we're given. It's not that
Can be. And
not
it also
everybody.
can be that he strengthens the disabled so they can handle more.
Now, I've also always said this: it's easier to be born disabled than to become disabled. because I don't know what it's like to be quote unquote normal. So this is all I know. But for some people like my stepfather, who had 4 strokes and 3 heart attacks back to back and survived and became disabled, it's a bigger struggle because he knew what it was like to be normal. And then he couldn't take care of himself. That's the harder transition in my mind.
And that makes
And
sense.
I didn't have that. Well, when I did this report, my professor asked me how I knew so much about cerebral palsy. And without thinking, I told him, I've got cerebral palsy. I had a 4.0 grade point average, straight A student. And he goes, well, I wouldn't expect someone like you to have the grades you do.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, this is where I have to step in and I have to say that cerebral palsy doesn't affect someone's intelligence.
No.
It just affects how that information can get out. And certainly, you're in school, you've got this GPA, you're taking this class and other classes online very successfully with a 4.0, and he should know better on so many levels.
And he's a professor. And he said this. I was floored. I was upset. I finished class and got out of class, but I broke down. And mom goes, what's wrong? She come home from work, she found me upset, she wanted to know what was wrong. And I told her, and she goes, are you going to let him get away with that attitude? I taught you better.
There you go.
And I looked at her and I said, but mom, how do I fight that ignorance? And she said, you don't fight it, you teach it. Only by teaching it can we overcome it.
Speaking of teaching it, Gloria, the lady who just sent me the tweet a few minutes ago, says, can you please tell me what cerebral palsy is? Tonya, I'm going to hand this back to you.
That's fine. Cerebral palsy is a disorder. It's a muscle disorder. It's caused by lack of oxygen to the brain, which causes a section of your brain to die or become damaged, or in my case, both. The part of my brain that controls muscle coordination is damaged, and another part of it that controls the muscles in my limbs, my arms and my legs, has actually died from lack of oxygen. Therefore, your brain's not getting the information from that sector. Oh, this muscle needs to go left, this muscle needs to lift, that lets you walk, because that is how you walk, messages from your brain to your body.
Right.
When that part of your brain is dead or damaged, you can't walk because your muscles don't know what they're supposed to do. They're not getting the message. So in my case, when I was born, 7.5 months, and then had hardly no oxygen to my brain, it damaged the brain. There is research using hyperbaric chambers to help the damaged sections of a child's brain recover a little. It's still experimental, and it works best on kids because they're still growing. But the dead section of your brain, and if you have cerebral palsy, you've got a dead section of your brain. Something happened to cause a small brain death.
And
Can
it's
be helped.
reasonable, going back, you were talking about epilepsy a minute ago. It's reasonable that you would have seizures, given that you would have a portion of your brain that's a little damaged there.
Yes,
It just makes sense to me.
The seizures in my case, the reason why they were not detectable by a normal EEG or other brain scans, which I had in high school, is because they found out later it's coming out of the damaged section of my brain.
Sure.
So it wasn't showing up in your normal test for epilepsy. I passed it. The lights,
Okay.
the EEG, the light test where they flash lights in your eyes, all of that only showed a small mess up on the sensors because there was already a section of my brain that was not functioning correctly. So it didn't show up. So they didn't know until I
That
was in
had to
my
be so
late.
frustrating to have
Yeah,
had this going on and not have it show up on the EEGs and so forth.
I thought I was going a little crazy. I thought it was just I was making something up, or I was seeing something that wasn't there. I didn't
Right.
realize it was actually something serious. I was living on my own. I was about 19 or 20, and my best friend had a key because Danny, had a key because I was worried something might happen, or I had a bad habit of locking myself out of my apartment. So
Okay.
I'd have to
Yeah,
call her and go.
there's a lot of us who have been there a few times on that one.
I'd have to call her and go, "Hey, come let me in." So she had a key, and we were set to go do some running for her folks. And because I told her, I said, "Come get me. I need to get out of this apartment. These four walls are driving me nuts."
Sure.
So she goes, "I'll be there in half an hour and I'll bring breakfast." So she expected me to be ready. I didn't answer the door. I didn't even know she was ringing the doorbell. She comes in. She found me unconscious in the shower. That's when we found out something was definitely wrong. And I was told later, you can't live alone anymore because your seizures are too unpredictable. You could really have drowned in that instance.
Yeah,
And the
and that's
doctor
something
was worried.
people don't understand who don't have epilepsy is the sudden restrictions that are placed on you. Nobody should go hiking by themselves without some form of communication device. But for someone who has epilepsy, that's a complete no go, as well as living by yourself, as well as, making sure that you've got your pots all turned right on the stove and never
Mm-hmm.
swimming by yourself. People who've never faced those restrictions don't understand what they're looking at there. But you had all of these restrictions on top of everything else, and you actually had lived independently.
Oh, yes. I've lived, my best friend Danny and I decided to move out together because she was spending more time at my apartment than her own house because it was quiet and she could study.
Sure.
And her house was very active, very busy. So we decided to move out together, and we lived together for 18 years until we were both 35, and she got a blood clot in the lung and she passed away suddenly. And then I was on my own again. Uh, I, I lived on my own for a couple of months, and again, I couldn't do it because of my physical disabilities. And the woman who was supposed to be my in-home caregiver flat said, "I'm not cleaning that up. I'm not cooking that." I cooked in the crock pot a turkey breast and some stuffing on the stove, and that was
Whoa,
supposed to
whoa,
be my
whoa,
dinner
whoa,
for the
whoa,
next couple
whoa,
of
whoa.
days.
She is your caregiver and she's refusing to
Yes,
do part of her job.
right. And then when I told her, I said, "I need to use the restroom. Would you turn the food off for me and get it out?" I come back and the turkey breast roast is gone, and so is the stuffing. She took it home with her and fed it to her kids. She got fired.
Oh, oh. So on top of not providing care, she stole your food.
Yes. Mhm. She thought my dogs were
I'm going to
going.
keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, this is a little bit okay, TMI, but this is part of the story for you to understand. I had just lost my best friend, and underneath it, I didn't know I was suffering complications from severe endometriosis. I couldn't get from a 12 by 60 trailer from one end to the other to go to the bathroom without having an accident because I had to crawl. I was hurting so bad. She thought my dogs were the ones going in the floor, not me, and wouldn't help me clean it up.
Yeah,
That's
but as a caregiver, I'm sorry. As the caregiver, she should ask. and there's a difference in human and animal, and I get that, but she, on many levels, but that was her job to clean it up. She should have asked you, knowing that you have cerebral palsy and the other issues.
I had contacted a friend of mine who I grew up with. It was my mom's best friend's daughter, and she and my sister and I all grew up together. We're the same age. And she said, we call her a little stick of dynamite. She's got the patience of Job, but when that fuse is lit and it finally burns out, you don't want to. And I had been telling her what was going on. And she says, do you want me to come get you? You can live with me. And you can, I'm still going through the grief of Danny's passing and everything. And she says, you can live with me as long as you need to. And she come up to get me the next day. On the way out of town, I didn't face the caregiver face to face because I couldn't.
And you shouldn't have to face her at all. The woman actually, or the caregiver, shouldn't be gender specific here. The caregiver is lucky you didn't put her in jail for theft, if nothing else.
I fired her over the phone on the way out of town. And she kept calling my phone so much that my friend Sheila actually picked up the phone when I was asleep one day and started texting back as me and got her to quit and quit bothering me. And I did report her to the state agency. The mistake that I made, and if you have a caregiver, please, you can't really make these mistakes anymore because they don't have papers you sign. But if you do, don't do this. Don't do what I did. I signed the papers ahead of time, the timesheets. Okay. She had 3 little kids under 5. I was worried about the children.
Sure.
She's like, I need the money for my kids. I'm a soft heart. I signed them ahead so she could send them in.
You had no way of knowing that the person who you were signing for is a scumbucket. I mean, she didn't have this flashing neon sign saying, I'm going to take advantage of you. And there are some times where people have been known to sign forms ahead of time just to make it quicker when it's time to file them because they've already got that portion of the paperwork done.
Right. And I was kind of thinking about the kids. She needs the money for these children. And so when I got down to my friend Sheila's, I talked to Sheila about it. And Sheila's like, it's your decision, but I would report her. So I did. And I admitted to the state lady, listen, I did this. I made this mistake. I did sign the paperwork ahead of time. But here's what she did. Here's why I fired her. And she did get in trouble over it. She didn't go to jail, but she did get in trouble.
So she's really lucky she didn't go to jail, in my opinion, because you could have filed charges on at least the theft of the food with it being totally separate from the timesheets. And that's something she could have potentially gone to jail over. And the fact that you didn't file charges and the fact that you took the high road and just reported her is really to your credit, I think. It shows your compassion about the kids where she's concerned.
I didn't want her to go to jail. She's got 3 little kids and a husband who was injured and had a spinal problem, a back problem, because he had spinal surgery and they put screws in his spine and he was in constant agony afterward.
Sure.
And so they needed her. Okay. And I was hoping she would just learn a lesson from it, but I didn't think that jail would be a needed lesson. The kids would suffer and her husband would suffer. And I was friends with the family. Good friends.
And that was very nice of you. It really shows your compassion that even with everything you have going on in your life, that you can still be that forward thinking and compassionate to others, that a lot of people could not do that, Tonya.
It wasn't me. It was, again, my mom gets credit. my grandparents get credit. They taught my sister and I, what about the other person? And you got to teach that to your kids. Look at both sides of the issue. How would the other person feel if you were in their shoes? Talk to your kids about that. Make them see, okay, if I tease this person, how is it going to feel to be teased? How is it going to feel to be in those person's shoes? And that's a lesson your kids will carry through life, as I have carried it, because it gave me pause. You know, even now as an adult, I talk to Mom constantly about things, and she'll say, look at the other side of the issue. You know, even I'm going to quote Dr. Phil, my mom's favorite. He says, even a pancake has two sides. Even the
There you
flattest
go.
pancake has two sides. Dr. Phil says that. And it's so true. Every story's got two sides.
It
Even your
is. It's
bully,
very,
even your school bully. What are they going through at home
it's true.
to
Because they
make
have to
them
learn it somewhere.
act out? I had a kid, I had just had surgery. I was 12 years old. And the air conditioning went out in our school. And they said, wear shorts, wear skirts, bring water, don't wear long pants. I had had hamstring surgery. The hamstrings, folks, are the muscles in the upper back of your leg, the upper thigh, in the back. And so my surgery site was very red because I had just gotten out of the cast, and I was just learning to walk again. When you're wearing shorts, that will show.
Right.
Okay, he saw that, and he took a baseball bat at recess, and he got me with it in the back of the legs in the surgery site. I of course went
Really?
I of course went to the hospital. My friend, one of my friends, was mad enough she chased him down and beat him up because she knew I wouldn't and I couldn't. And it was later found out that he was withdrawn from the school instead of getting in trouble. And his parents said, and this was a quote that I heard from the principal, they had said, if I had known that he was going to school with a girl like her, he would never have attended your school. And he was put in a
Mm.
private school. So, yes, you have a point. Where are they learning it?
Right. Right. And that's the thing, because so much of the violent behavior that people experience, from bullying to domestic violence, so much of that is a learned behavior that starts right in the home.
It starts as a child. Even
Yeah,
before you can speak, if you see violent behavior, even as a baby, that's going to leave some kind of imprint in your memory, you know.
for
And,
sure.
I have met so many wonderful people, Jerry Lewis, Sammy Davis Jr., through Shriners. And Jerry Lewis was one of my favorites. I was one of the only ones that day to have surgery that didn't have a mom. I was actually the only one that didn't have a family member by their bed. I wake up in recovery and he's sitting by my bed holding my hand. He forego the rest of the tour of the hospital to be with me while I woke up because my family couldn't be there.
Okay.
Then
And I
he
just want
toured.
you to repeat who that was to make sure everybody got it.
That was Jerry Lewis.
Wow.
That was Jerry Lewis. And then later, when they put me in my room after he had met the other kids toward the hospital, it was way dark at night. Oh, dark 30. Everybody else was asleep, and of course I wasn't. I've always had trouble sleeping. Uh, he came in my room, and Shriners has you in what they call wards. These are rooms with 5 or 6 other kids in the room, and everybody else is asleep, and their moms or their aunts or whoever's by their bed. And he comes in my room to check on me. He found out where they put me. He comes in my room, sits by my bed, and spent the rest of the night till I went to sleep, which was several hours, uh,
How
talking to me.
cool is that? That you have somebody famous who comes and cares enough to sit by you while you're falling asleep. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's a
That
God
is like
thing.
the coolest thing.
It's a God thing. I need somebody, and He puts them where I need them. I needed someone at school to have my back, to help me. And my best friend moves 1,200 miles from Casper, Wyoming to St. Clair, Missouri. And the day I met her, she was mad at the world. Sitting at the table looking like, if you sit here, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to let you know this is not good. She's not happy.
Whoa.
Well, I ignored it, as I'm wont to do. I plopped down my books. I said, "Hi, my name's Tonya. Anybody sitting here?" Good. No. Didn't give her a chance to reply. She didn't get rid of me for the rest of her life. And she was
Oh,
one of the
that's
best friends
cool.
I ever had. And God puts people in your life for a reason. Even if you only meet them for 5 minutes, those 5 minutes can change the world for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Are there any
I
questions? I can't see the
wholeheartedly
chat.
believe that. Absolutely. It does.
Are there any
Okay, well,
questions, Gail?
Tonya,
I can't see the chat.
yeah. Tony, we just to let you know, we've got about 5 minutes left to go here. I usually try to keep this one to an hour. That
Yeah.
way, when we get the podcast uploaded, it just works better for people. So
Well,
just
I
to
hope
let you know.
everybody enjoyed themselves. If you have any questions, Gail's got my email. Just shoot me an email. I want to recommend a book, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
It's called Someone Like Me by John W. Quinn. He's on Facebook. Look him up. He hid his cerebral palsy from the military and served in the military. He has a wonderful
Wow.
life story. You can get his book. I love his story. He went through all the military training hiding his cerebral palsy because he had the want to do something with his life. And it's just a wonderful story. If you're interested in my story, his is better. Look him up, read his book. And if you want to know more about cerebral palsy, Google it, Google me, look me up on Facebook. I'm an open book. And this
Yeah,
is just,
I'm looking
I
for
want
his
to
book
help
right now
somebody.
to see about linking it down below. So I'm going to keep looking. It didn't
It's
come
a
up
red book.
immediately. So,
It's a red book, and he's in his white dress uniform
okay.
on
We'll
the
keep
cover.
looking for it. Oh, there we go. I found it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the direct link to that book down below in the description box so other people can find it really quick.
It's a very good story. It explains cerebral palsy and what he went through, and it'll give you more of an idea of what life is like from childhood to adulthood and through. And just because someone's body doesn't work, never think their mind's not there. Even if they can't speak, they're there. Treat them with that respect because that's how you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
That's what I really like to put out there.
Okay. Now, I know that we talked about briefly earlier about some of the quote serious questions for the lightning round.
Yes, we did. And I was
We
hoping to
did.
get some.
Yes, I'm going to shoot those to you now. First, let me remind everybody this is going to be available indefinitely on YouTube. So don't forget to like it and share it, okay? Let other people know that whatever they're going through, certainly Tonya's been through, she's living with cerebral palsy, but she's been through so much otherwise. And Tonya, we do need to see about having a second episode if you're up for that.
Oh,
But
I'm up for it.
but everybody just share it, okay? Now,
And
Tonya.
Gail, if they ask you for my email address, go ahead and give it to them.
Okay, I will. I'll share that email address. Also, folks, you can leave comments down in the comment section. And when I do get a comment, I'll just let you know. Sometimes people comment, sometimes they don't. Okay, so folks that are listening, don't hold back in the comments, okay? Really important. All right, so Tonya, the lightning round, serious questions, which serious is tongue in cheek here, okay?
I am so excited for this.
Okay. Well, I shared some that I was going to ask, and so I'm not really going to ask them. Okay. The one of those questions that I will ask is, if you were going to go skydiving and you could land in any country in the world, which one would that be?
Ireland. I have
Really?
always wanted to go to Ireland. I'm Scottish and part Irish, and the rest is Native American, so you can imagine. But I've always wanted to go to Ireland. So it would be Ireland. Then I wouldn't have to go to Customs.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, if you would choose to stay a certain age forever, what age would it be?
I think it would be 30. You're not quite old, but you're not as young and dumb, as my mom likes to say, as you used to be. So I would pick 30. It's a good middle ground.
Awesome. And if your life were a movie, what would the title be?
You're gonna let I would call it falling up.
There you go.
Because I have had more trouble going up hills, upstairs. I fall more going up something than I do going down. So I would call it falling up.
Okay, that is a neat answer. Well, thank you very much for everything, for all those amazing answers, for your amazing self, for being on here. Real quick, is there anything that you would like to say before you go to anyone who may be watching or listening?
Don't hold anything in, even if you think it's a stupid thing. Mentally, physically, be honest with yourself, be honest with your family, be honest with your doctors. Everybody in the world is trying. We need to help everybody else. Be honest, be truthful, and be good to each other.
There you go. Wonderful words to live by there. Tonya, thank you again so much for being on Overcoming the Obstacles. And everyone, again, don't forget to give this a thumbs up. Don't forget to share it, and because you want to tell everybody you know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? It's
Don't
free.
forget that
It
like
only takes a
button.
second. Just smash that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Tonya, thank you again for being on. We'll have this video, however long it takes Google to process it, just a few minutes. Then it'll be available indefinitely for everybody who's watching. So
thank you so much.
Again, Tonya. And everybody, we will see you out, about, and online. Again, thank you, Tonya. Bye.
Bye.